All right, welcome into Carp's Corner. Recovered a little bit finally from the college football national championship. What a game it was. It was absolutely fantastic to see, and very, very fantastic performances. And watching Stetson Bennett and his attempt to go on Good Morning America was absolutely tremendous as well, as he tried to recover from that. His partying all night. One of the debates came up was, is Stetson still drunk or hungover? I say check yes to both boxes. And I hope that after a win like that, after a comeback like that, after being resilient after the SEC championship and resilient within the national championship game after his fumble, Stetson Bennett, I hope, enjoyed his life to the fullest the night after that game, Monday night. I hope he enjoyed Tuesday night, Wednesday. I hope he enjoys this entire week, this entire month, because he is a hero to Dogs Nation now. And after 41 years of waiting, he's the guy that gets to bring back the trophy. Yeah, it was the defense, but he made those huge plays down the stretch that, if you look at it, those were the ones that made the difference. And he did it after letting the ball slip through his hands and what appeared to be handing Alabama a victory. So with that, Stetson Bennett, I tip my cap to you, sir. And you know what? Enjoy all of the spoils that come with victory. Turning the attention a little bit to the NFL and everything that's going on. Right now, college football is taking a little bit of a break. We're going to get in, a little bit here to the playoff expansion, what that ultimately looks like, and setting up a timeline here in future, in future episodes of trying to figure out, hey, how should this work as far as, the portal, early signing period, do you do away with it? Do you move it up? And then National Signing Day and maybe like a transfer portal period as well. And this way, college football can maybe dominate a little bit more of the year-long calendar, something that the NFL does really, really well. So we'll get into all of that, but there's no pressing news, nothing that's immediate right now that we need to find out about, is outside of some of these quarterbacks jumping in the portal, and we see guys going with their coaches. And can you get your hand tipped, if you will, when you see a quarterback leave somewhere else? Is that indicating that someone else will be sliding over there and taking their place? So we'll get into all that here in the future and take a look at it as well. One of the things I want to get into, Joe Burrow and everything that he's done, and his story is not all that dissimilar from Stetson Bennett, to tell you the truth. I mean, he just had a little bit more physical ability and a decent amount more. I would say he's got the height, he has the physical build, and he was a low 4-star guy that was recruited to Ohio State out of Athens High School, but really made himself a player throughout college at both Ohio State and then ultimately LSU, winning a national championship, and what he has done thus far in his young NFL career. And my man Dan Orlovsky pointed this out, on Twitter. And it was interesting. And I was looking back on this and trying to figure out, okay, if you look at it, Joe Burrow's kind of had 6 like big time games over the course of his career, gotta win situations. We call them gotta have it situations, in game, gotta win games, must win games, if you will. In college, you look at it, 2019 Bama, he goes and wins that game, slays the Saban beast, and is able, to bring home the victory there. Then plays Georgia in the SEC championship. They win that game. Another must-win situation. Joe Burrow pulls it out. Then the semifinals. It's win or go home now at this point for LSU. They play Oklahoma, smoke them, look fantastic, and then ultimately beat Clemson in the national championship and do so pretty handily. Win that game in a big way. So all the stuff he's done, his 4 games, college, his senior year, must-wins on the road to the national championship. Boom, 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 boom. Did them all. Was very, very impressive in being able to execute in those games. Then this season, 2021, 2 big wins that he needed. Week 16 against the Ravens, week 16 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Pat Mahomes, they need to find a way to win to make sure that they could not only, secure their division crown, but then also jockey for some playoff positioning as well. And, those things are important. And so Joe Burrow was able to win both of those games. And so that puts him at 6-0 in these big critical games. end of season runs that you get to the momentum and you get moving along. It's really huge for the psyche of a football team. And in those games, you threw 2,669 yards. That's 444 yards a game, roughly. I mean, that is absolutely remarkable. 27 touchdowns, and more importantly, 0 interceptions. Joe Burrow is the epitome of a big game quarterback. And you're going to get a chance to see him in the playoffs, see him against the Vegas Raiders, and get a chance to look at him and see what you saw in college. And there is a reason why people are alluding to him as if he's Tom Brady and has some of those same characteristics, same traits. Because to this point in his career, he's been really good when his team needed him the most. And so we'll see if that continues. I have a tendency to believe that it will, and we'll get in. I'll pick all the games here before too long. Joe Burrow, huge in big games. Everybody kind of knew it, but you look at the numbers, and the numbers bear out what your eyes have told you, which to me is what statistics and analytics and all of these things, that's what it's ideally supposed to do and what it's ideally supposed to represent. So that's big time right there. Some news in the NFL as well for another playoff team. The Rams, they've been getting beat up by injuries all year. Guys have been in and out, in the backfield, offense, defense, a lot of different places. They lose Jordan Fuller. He's a Pro Bowl safety for him. Ankle injury, he's done for the season. Really, really talented young player. Very smart, heady guy. The guy who I played with, played against, well, from my era, Eric Weddle, coming out of retirement to play for the Rams. And, it's interesting, the fact that he's going to be doing this. He played a long time. He played for the Chargers, played for the Ravens. The guy ultimately retires. And a lot of guys work out and stay in shape. I'm curious to see how well he looks. It's one thing to play offensive line or defensive line and come in and you're rushing and it's explosive movements. And if you're lifting weights and doing some, anaerobic running, some intervals and some different things, you can do that and you can have those guys on a pitch count. I mean, if you're bringing in Eric Weddle, you're probably planning on him playing a significant amount. You're not dressing him not to go out there and play. And the question is how much of the game is he going to play? Can you leave him in there for 6-7 plays? Defensive backs in the NFL and college football, some of those guys are running 5 to 7 miles a game. And so I know Eric Weddle is a fitness freak. He works out all the time. I'd like to think I keep myself in pretty good shape. If someone said, hey, you got to be ready to go. And even 5 years ago, when I was just a couple years out, I mean, for an entire game, it would have been tough and training and making sure you're ready. And so we'll have to see how Eric Weddle plays, but it's an interesting development. You've seen this happen before. I think the Cowboys pulled Charles Haley out of retirement to come back and play for him, and how dominant he was, bringing him back to rush the passer a little bit. And you see this happen, like I said, up front sometimes, very rarely with a defensive back, and especially a guy at safety who's got to communicate and make sure they've got the scheme set up and understanding what's going on, because I always say mistakes in the front end, those are first downs. Mistakes in the back end and the secondary, those are touchdowns. And you don't get to line up and play those again. Eric Weddle back playing with the Rams in a big playoff game this week. Playoffs, NFL, 6 games they are now giving us. Thanks to this new format they threw out there last year. Add the 7th game, or 7th team getting in, gives you that extra game each day. So you get the 6 games instead of just the 4. And it is just drinking from a fire hose. And they gave you the Monday nighter this week. So, last season you go 3-3. This year, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make sure that you're getting as much as you can, but we don't want to waste something in the early Saturday window. We're going to save that for Monday night. Now, it may put one of those teams at a disadvantage into the next week, coming off a short week, but oh well. Or well, get the bye if you don't like it. And it's going to be one game. I would imagine that team would definitely play on Sunday, because it wouldn't be fair for the winner of Arizona and Los Angeles to play on a Saturday in the second weekend. But first game, Saturday, Vegas in Cincinnati, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals in Joe Burrow, 5.5-point dogs. Raiders are a great story. Derek Carr has held this team together all year through John Gruden's firing. Oh my goodness. You think of everything that has happened, Damon Arnett, Ruggs, the whole bit. and they somehow managed to get in the playoffs. They had a win and you're in, and they win the game. They get in the playoffs, eliminate the Los Angeles Chargers, and they get in there, and they're representing the AFC West as a wild card. I think Joe Burrow is too much for him. I know Cincinnati hasn't won a game in 31 years in the playoffs. Been there plenty of times. Have had good teams. None of them had an offense quite this explosive. And none of them have had a quarterback like Joe Burrow. And so as much as I love Derek Carr and the story that is, and Josh Jacobs pounding the rock and everything that they have going for him out there in Vegas, Max Crosby, I mean, they've got a great rushing attack of what they're able to do. Their pass rush, that's the one thing that worries me about Cincinnati, is where Vegas is good up front with their front four getting pressure. Cincinnati is not great. It's been the weakness of their team all year, and that's the offensive line. So they're going to have to scheme some stuff up. Zach Taylor finding a way to get the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands, get the rushing game going with Joe Mixon, because you can't just pour it on Joe Burrow in straight dropbacks, 5 and 7 step, and expect the offensive line to be able to hold up, because he's going to have guys breathing down his neck. And I believe Max Crosby has like 100 pressures or something crazy this year. He's been all over. They've got a multitude of talented rushers. They can come from both sides. I still like the Bengals to win. 5.5 is a big number. Playoff games are close. Cincinnati can really score the ball, but I thought the Chargers could really score the ball too. And Justin Herbert can air that thing out. I would probably take the points, but I take Cincinnati to win this game. Pats, Bills, Saturday night game. New England, 4-point dogs heading in to Buffalo. It's supposed to be bitter cold, 0 degrees. Buffalo, I think, has, I don't know if you can ever fully have Bill Belichick figured out, but I think they're comfortable and confident playing against the New England Patriots. And that's something that's really tough to do, especially for a team that's in your division that has dominated the NFL. Last year, they weren't quite as good. They got a lot of their defensive players back. They retooled that offense. They drafted Mac Jones. You saw what they did to Buffalo in their first matchup. Hey, it's windy. It's freezing. We're going to line up and rush the ball 60 times a game. What Bill Belichick is going to do, he's going to find your weak spot, or however the game needs to be played. And he's just going to lean into it and lean into it and lean into it and hope that you ultimately crack. Now, Buffalo can throw it. They obviously have the talented receivers. Josh Allen can run it. Their running game has been picking up. Josh Allen, I mean, he can do it all. He's a pretty big game quarterback at this point with what I've seen, and he's a big physical guy, checks a lot of boxes. I think Buffalo gets him. I'm hesitant to take anything though over a field goal. I would probably take the points in this, but Josh Allen has to make sure he dominates this game. He does not turn the football over. They have to get the rushing attack going because it's going to be cold. And Diggs has got to win. He's got to go out there and win. He's been one of the best receivers in the NFL all year long. He has to win these matchups to be able to have success. But I think the Bills ultimately get it done and move on forward. Bills Mafia, get excited. It's going to be a fun one. Philly, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, 8.5-point favorites. I understand, Godwin's out. Antonio Brown's gone. They've got a lot of things swirling around. Mike Evans was on a pitch count. He should be a little bit more healthy, hopefully this week, and be able to move in the right direction. Philly, they've been relying on Jalen Hurts to run the football in that pretty good, that solid rushing attack. Heck, them getting in the playoffs this year, way ahead of schedule with where I thought the Philadelphia Eagles would ultimately be. So huge achievement for them. But this is why Tom Brady plays football. This is why he's here. He does it for the playoffs, to win, for hat and t-shirt games, for ring games. That's why Tom Brady does it. He is an unbelievable competitor. And frankly, we've watched him do it all season long, all career long, regardless who his weapons are. He finds a way to get it done. He's got Gronk back. He looks pretty healthy. They got to get the running game figured out a little bit. I think Tampa Bay wins this. 8.5 is another big number, but I don't think Philly's really all that great on offense. And I think their defense can be had. And Tom Brady, I would be stunned if he mails in anything less than excellent on Sunday morning. So Sunday afternoon. So looking at that, I'd probably lay those points as well. Next game, we've got the classic matchup of the 90s, two teams that had dynasties that overlapped, the San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys. Neither of them have really done a ton in the postseason. San Francisco did make a Super Bowl. Dallas has made a couple mild runs, but neither one of them have done anything since the 90s of their former glory. You would really be able to get there. I guess San Fran's been to 2 Super Bowls, so they've done a little, but no one's won anything. And these were 2 of the franchises that, they've got five Lombardis apiece. I mean, that's some big time ball right there with what they've been able to do. So 2 of the most storied franchises in NFL history battling together. Dallas this year, it was supposed to be the year of offense. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Gallup, all of them. Well, you got some injuries now. The triumvirate has become a duo. And frankly, a little bit of the time, the offense the team has been carried by the defense with Micah Parsons and what he's been able to do with Diggs and his double-digit interceptions. Question for Dallas, will they be able to get it going offensively, running the football, and can that defense step up big and be able to slow down the rushing attack of the 49ers? Because that's what they're really good at, is rushing the football. Kyle Shanahan does it in a multitude of ways. They can get George Kittle going. He hasn't been all that effective here late in the season, but it's that rushing attack, Deebo Samuel, moving him around in a multitude of ways. It's 3 points. I don't feel great about this game. I would not want to bet it. If I wasn't sitting here talking to you about it, I would not put soft earned dollars on this. I think there's a good chance San Fran pulls the upset. I like Dak in this situation. I'm going to lean on the more experienced quarterback and think that he pulls it out. But San Francisco is probably going to give them all they can handle. Pittsburgh, Kansas City. Big Ben, his last ride. They find a way to win against Baltimore, and you think that might be his last game. Well, lo and behold, the Jaguars give them a nice present, and there is no tie on Sunday night, and so Pittsburgh gets into the playoffs. The biggest dog of the weekend, 12.5 points. It's massive. It's a massive line. I think Pittsburgh covers it. I think their defense bows up enough to be able to get it done. Kansas City's been playing much better here towards the end of the year, although their offense did struggle against the Cincinnati Bengals. Pittsburgh, Ben has done just enough. It's his swan song. It's nice that he got into the playoffs in his final year. I don't see them winning this game. I would take the points just because 12.5 is a huge number, and this game kind of screams more 27-17 to me. But we'll see how much offense Pittsburgh ultimately has. But it looks like this Kansas City train is starting to get pointed in the right direction. Outside of the hiccup against Cincinnati, who I think has turned out to be pretty darn good, they seem to be having it going in the right direction. Defense, when Chris Jones is healthy and they have everybody there ready to go, that defensive line is formidable. And Steve Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, usually has them playing really good ball in the playoffs. His defense gets better usually as the season goes. So we'll see how all that shakes out. But I'd take the points. But I think this is a great final game for Ben, a nice send-off. I wouldn't even be surprised if he gets a standing ovation in Arrowhead if this thing was without reach, in the closing moments of the game. And the Kansas City fans, I think they recognize greatness. They understand it, and they're great people. So it'd be a nice tip of the cap. Final game of the weekend, Monday night, Arizona Cardinals, Los Angeles Rams, Rams -4. Mentioned Eric Weddle coming out of retirement. How many snaps will he be able to give them? How effective will he be? Does he know the defense well enough? Is he in good enough shape to be able to do it? That's not a knock on Weddle. He's a phenomenal athlete, but he's older. If you're not playing football, it's tough to be in football shape. And then the other element of this, Matt Stafford and Odell Beckham Jr., they've gotten on the right page most of the time. They look to be in sync. Then there's the interception at the end of the game last week against San Fran, and you begin to wonder again, like, okay, we thought we had this worked out. Numbers were looking really good. And then unfortunately you end on that play. Arizona, you're getting JJ Watt back. Is he going to play? One of the most remarkable recoveries you're going to find. But the reality is they have got to find a way to run the football. They can't just continue to push all this on Kyler Murray. They've struggled down the stretch because they haven't run the football well enough. Early in the season, they were able to move it around and get it going up front. Not having Nuke Hopkins, that's going to hurt him. He's been out for a while. They've lost some of their offensive firepower when he went down. Can AJ Green, can he step up and be big enough to fill the void? Or are they going to dump all this on Kyler Murray? I think the Rams win this game. I want Stafford to play well personally. I love Matty. He's a friend. I think he does enough for them to win the game. The spread is 4. I think they cover it only slightly. This looks like a touchdown game to me. And hopefully the Rams get it done. Now, NFL, there are 7 coaching openings for fired coaches at this point. You've got the Bears, you've got the Broncos, you've got the Raiders, you've got the Dolphins, the Jags, the Vikes, the Giants. In a year, we didn't think many people would get fired. So I'm going to rate each one of these jobs. I'm going to give them a grade. We've got the Bears. They've got a head coach and general manager open because Ryan Pace was fired along with Matt Nagy. Here's my 5 criteria. You got your quarterback. You have the rest of the roster. You want to decouple those. Your organizational stability, what they're willing to provide, the city that you're in, and the division that you're in. Because who are you going to be playing 6 of those games out of your 17? You got the Bears. We'll start with them. Quarterback, Justin Fields. You drafted him high. Played all right this year. Some good, some bad. Didn't have a ton of weapons. I give the quarterback grade there B, B minus. Rest of the roster, defense is really good. They're getting aging. They're injured. If Allen Robinson walks out that door, I'm not sure what else they have as far as, offensively to really scare people. Offensive line is okay. The rest of the roster, I'm probably giving a C, probably a C, maybe a C plus, but most likely a C. I'm even maybe leaning towards C. I'm going to go C minus, C minus, somewhere in there. Organization, houses, they're proud. McCaskey's, they want to try to get it right. They want to win. I don't think they spend enough money. They're trying to get a new stadium. That's going to be done here eventually. Will a new coach be around to see that? New general manager? I don't know. Organization, I'd have to give a C minus, probably a D plus with how they've operated. It's a Bears town. It's one of the biggest cities in the country. It's a football region, and it just doesn't seem like they've been able to compete, and there's no reason for it. The city, Chicago, I'm giving it a B plus, A minus, B plus. People love Chicago. They like to play there. Division, I'm gonna have to probably give that a C. You're gonna have Aaron Rodgers there for probably at least another 2 years. 3, as we've seen now, coaches, a lot of times they don't last that long. They probably won't last, maybe outlast Aaron Rodgers. If that's the case, it doesn't matter. But the Vikings, they've got coaching turnover as well. Lions look to potentially be on the come up if they get their quarterback situation figured out. And it looks like Dan Campbell's got them pointed in the right direction. So division, I'll give them a C. Then we've got the Vikes. Head coach, general manager, Zimmer, Spiels, out. Quarterback situation, I'm going to give it a B minus, maybe a C plus. Kirk Cousins, big cap number next year. He's been good, but he's never been great. Not elite. He's touched greatness from time to time, but never consistently enough. Rest of the roster, they've got some weapons. Justin Jefferson, Thielen when he's healthy. They're able to run the football. They have everything. Dalvin Cook, everything you want. Defense is aging a little bit. Rest of the roster, I'm going to give a B plus, maybe even almost A minus. B plus, A minus. Organization, the Wilfs, they're going to spend money. They want to win. Great new facilities. They're pretty stable. They don't get involved in things. City, I think Twin Cities is nice. Guys like living there. It's a good environment, good football community. They show up, they support their fans. We give the city, B plus, A minus. Division, you got to go with a C for the same reason with the Bears. You've got the Night King, Aaron Rodgers in there. That's tough. Broncos, right? They move on from Vic Fangio. Let's take a look. Quarterback, you don't know. Have no idea. Drew Lock, he's not the answer. Teddy Bridgewater, he could potentially be a transition guy for you. Quarterback situation's a D for the Broncos. Rest of the roster, you've got some pretty good receivers. They've kind of retooled that defense. I think they're fairly solid everywhere else. I'd give the rest of the roster a B minus, maybe even a B. Pretty good spot. Organization, got some ownership stuff they've got to figure out ever since Pat Bowlen passed away. John Elway appears to kind of be a stabilizing force over there for him. We have the organization a B. City, Denver, sunny all the time. Fans show up. They love the game. They're going there. They're showing up at Mile High. They support the team. I'm going to give the city, let's give Denver an A minus. It's football city. It's a great place to live. Division, this is rough. I'm giving the division a D because you're going to have to go into Justin Herbert. You've got Derek Carr, assuming he stays there, and Pat Mahomes. You have 3 other teams with quarterbacks that look to be solidified and look to be pretty good. 2 other playoff teams in here. Chargers should have probably got in. It's a daunting division. Given that, I'm giving that situation a D. Raiders looking for a head coach potentially. Who knows if they decide to stay with what they have, but quarterback, I'm going to give Derek Carr B+, A-. He's been good this year. Been good. Had some ups and downs, but given the situation, been very solid. Rest of the roster, not great. Mike Mayock and John Gruden, they've missed on some draft picks. D-line's pretty good. Secondary, it's okay. They've had some injuries. Outside of Waller, really, who are the big-time explosive playmakers on offense? Jacobs is good. Rest of the roster, I'll give a B- too. Organization, Mark Davis, I think, wants to win. I think they're going to have some money from being in Vegas. I don't think there's a lot of stability there. I'll give the organization, probably a flat C, maybe a C-. Could be trending green arrow up, depending if Mike Mayock's there and how they're able to stabilize everything with the rest of the organization. Goodness. City, Vegas, I'm going to give it an A- only because the same reason I give Miami an A-. There's a lot of guys that would love to play there. There's some guys that should probably never play there. And so you're going to be able to attract free agents. I think people are beginning to show up. You've got Raider Nation. They're pretty loyal. And for a new city, new market, I think they've done a fantastic job. Division, my goodness, you got to give it a D. You've got Derek Carr, but it's a tough division. Teams are loaded in there. Miami Dolphins. Looking at what they've been able to do. 9-8. Fire Brian Flores. Explosion. Doesn't make any sense. He did spin through a number of offensive coordinators. There was coaching instability. But for someone who traded, an organization who traded away all of their, not all, but most of their elite talent early in his tenure to get draft picks, begin to develop a little better. Tua didn't look like he was the answer. He had the hip injury obviously coming out. This season, he got progressively better. He looks like he could be the answer right now. So we'll start with quarterback. Tua, I'm going to give him a B-. C+, probably trending into B- later this year. And you know what? I might even bump that to the B, because if you're willing to, I think you're the preferred destination for Deshaun Watson. So if you're willing to give up assets, you can get him. So your quarterback situation may not be as bad as you think. Tua played a lot better. It's going to help his trade value if you want to go for Watson. If not, you feel like you're getting in a better spot. The rest of the roster, pretty darn good. Waddle was good. The defense was very good most of this year. You got Gesicki. There's a lot of pieces there that you can build with. It's how they were able to go 9-8 down the stretch. I would give the rest of the roster a nice B. Organization, you don't really have many fans that show up in Miami. That's part of the problem. Stephen Ross spends money. They're willing to do it. They've got upgrading the stadium. They continue to do things. Stephen Ross, he's not out in front a lot, but he does talk. It's probably more than some owners would like. So that's not maybe the greatest thing in the world. I'm going to give the organization a C, maybe a C+, because I think they want to do it right. They're just struggling to find the right way. And then City, same reason as Vegas, A-. Guys love Miami. Miami doesn't love everybody. You can't have everyone living there. Some guys were not meant to play in that environment. And then their division, you got to give it probably a C-. Buffalo looks really good with Josh Allen moving forward, seem to be set up to be able to win for the future. You have the Patriots with Mac Jones. They're always there. And then you got the Jets. So cobbling together wins is going to be difficult always in that division, especially the lone Southern team going up north during the later months of the season is always tumultuous. So for the division, I probably give it a C-. Another Florida team, Jags, Jacksonville. Quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, probably B-. Looked pretty good towards the end of the season. You didn't really see that growth that you wanted to see. They got a big win versus the Colts, but everybody still views him as an elite talent, and you can't win without a quarterback. And so I think a lot of people would love to draft Trevor Lawrence if he was the guy first overall this year. Unfortunately for them, he's not. He's already in Jacksonville. So they've got a quarterback situation of one that's like B-, but green arrow, hopefully trending vertically, going up. Rest of the roster, Travis Etienne hits, then it's going to start looking a little bit different. But the rest of the roster, I'd probably give a C. They've got one of the youngest teams in the NFL. So that could go to a C to a B very quickly. If you can develop some of those guys, they have a lot of assets. They've got cap space. They can change that thing around. And so I don't think it's a very dire situation, but you're talking C, maybe C plus into a B minus. You can go C to B if you get that thing going, in a hurry. Organization, Shad Khan wants to win. They're spending money. They're building a brand new facility, but I'm giving this thing a D because of Trent Balkey, the GM. It went sideways with him in San Francisco and Jim Harbaugh. I think there was maybe a little bit of turncoating on Urban Meyer. Not that he, with everything that happened with him, it's a little bit understandable, but I've heard multiple people call Trent Balkey a chameleon, and that's not something you necessarily want in your organization, especially if you're a head coach and you're trying to change the culture and get it into a winning situation. There's a guy who might be poisoning it well with the owner. If he feels things are starting to turn, you can't have that. You want total alignment and you want somebody to have your back. And I think that's going to hurt them because his reputation among coaches isn't the best. It's going to hurt them in the hiring process. Jacksonville is a city. It's Florida, no state income tax. That's positive. It's warm. Duval County, maybe not the greatest. Fans, not the best. I'm going to give it a C. Division, I'm going to give division a B. You got Houston, they're in a situation where they're trying to figure out what they're doing. They're in a holding pattern. You got the Colts, who have a pretty good roster, but somehow have managed to kind of squander some opportunities away. I wouldn't say they're overly dominant. Wentz can be good, but he can be bad. They've got Jonathan Taylor up there. Like, he's elite, but maybe they struggled down the stretch the last 3 or 4 games, and they lost to Jacksonville at the end of the season. And then you've got Tennessee, who is playing well, and you feel good with Tannehill, Derrick Henry when he's healthy, but I don't think anybody thinks that they're like some insurmountable obstacle. Got a good defense. They play good football. So division, I'll give it a C, maybe a C plus. Going to be able to go in there and win. Vikings, already went over them. New York Football Giants. General manager, you need a head coach. With Gettleman gone, I think that's going to make it a more appealing job. But they've got to make sure they get a good GM and get that thing going. Quarterback, I give the quarterback situation a D. You drafted a guy in Daniel Jones. He's been hurt. He's been up and down. He showed some flashes. I don't think anybody believes that he's the long-term answer. And so if the ownership wants to jam that down your throat, not a good situation. I'm going to give it a D. Rest of the roster, not great either. They're trying to turn this thing around. A lot of the renovating and the picks that were supposed to hit by Gettleman really haven't. I'll give the rest of the roster a C minus. That's probably being a little generous as well. Organization used to be one of the most storied organizations in sports. They were consistent. Heck, they've won 4 Super Bowls since 1986. 2 with Parcells, 2 with Coughlin. They've been to other Super Bowls. They have some really good coaches that have come through. The ownership really wants to win. They'll spend some money. They're in a huge market. There's fairly good consistency. I'll give the organization, I'm going to give them a C right now. They can get to a B if they hire a good GM, someone you feel confident with. And then you got the city. It's New York, baby. They love it. It's tough. It's hard to play there. It's hard to listen to people. The media is going to be all over you. You have to block out the noise, but they love the Giants in New York City. So that is a huge plus. I'm going to give it an A minus. A once COVID's over and the city can get back to normal. And then the division, I don't think anybody's fearful of this division. I'd give the division A minus. Dallas, yeah, they're pretty good. They have their quarterback figured out. The Eagles, Jalen Hurts, is he really the answer? Washington, that's kind of a mess right now. And so as you look at everything, I'd say the division's in a pretty good spot. So bad quarterback situation, not a great roster. A lot of the other things for the Giants going in a positive direction. But those are the 7 jobs right now that are opened up. And when you look at, for me, ranking those 5 things, any coach should want to look at. So if one of those is your team's, you got to deal with the bitter truth and confront the brutal reality of the situation that you're facing. Sometimes it's things you can't change. Can't change the teams in your division. Can't change the location of your team. Front office, you can change. You can revamp rosters. You can garner draft picks. But those are the pros and cons as I see them, as I throw those grades out for all the NFL teams. Now, that is all for today in Carp's Corner. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to get in the college football playoff. We'll keep following the NFL and all this transfer portal news, everything else that breaks down. We'll keep keeping you up to date. Thank you for listening and tuning in.